What is up, guys? Welcome to the Next Level Esports podcast, the number one podcast for esports coaches. My name is Donny, and today we have the one and only Chris SeeEl Lee on the show. He started his coaching career as a hobby in 2018, and he started as a coach at a university in Australia. But his career truly took off as he was scouted by a professional Golden Guardians Academy team in the United States, and later managed to climb through the ranks and competitions of the European regional leagues, up to the highest LEC levels, where he managed to raise a trophy with Rogue and coach Team Heretics last split also in the LEC. And today, I am sure for everyone who is watching this and is listening, it will be an inspiring story. A story of strength, perseverance, and fighting for what you believe is right. Something important for any coach to have in order if you want to make it big. And with Seeels Insights, I have no doubt you will be able to extract value from him and become a better coach as well. So, Chris, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for doing this. How are you doing currently?
I'm doing okay. Obviously, the news went public that I'm no longer with Team Heretics, which means I'm a free agent. I didn't expect to be a free agent so early, given that I was told it was a 2-year project. But, these things happen, and I'm excited to kind of find my next project and see where we go from there.
Yeah, because we will get there. I want to get, I believe many fans want to know, like, what is your next step? Or what are you going to do right now? But I believe for everything that you will say, basically answering those questions, me knowing you and following you a bit, and for everyone else, I think it's very good to start at the beginning, your origin story, because I believe that says so much about you as a coach, your character, and why you make certain decisions and how you potentially will make decisions into the future. So can you take us back to the beginning where you started off your journey and go from there?
Yeah, so to answer your question, basically, I started off in esports coaching without the intention of actually starting off in esports coaching. I'd finished my internship in New York for a fintech company. So I finished my remote internship for a company based in New York, a fintech gamifying kind of like social platform for investors. And I told myself I needed my own weapon. I wasn't the smartest guy in the room ever, so I knew I needed something special and a weapon of my own, as I said, and that happened to be esports. So then I dabbled in esports coaching. Somehow landed myself a gig with Trindamir, so Mark Merrill, the founder of Riot Games, because coaching is really all about being a teacher, and that's not something that you want to dabble in lightly. And so I did my research, taught him in front of 500-600 people, kind of expanded my clientele from gold, silver, bronze players to platinum, diamond, then eventually master challenger players. Some of them hit rank 1.
Right.
And more people were DMing me each day. Then I shifted away from coaching because, as I said, I was just dabbling in it to kind of have it synergize with my degree, where I worked for ESL as a player manager and translator. Looked at the production side of things as well, looked at how people were operating. I got to talk to a lot of interesting people, and then went back into coaching by August because I thought, hey, esports coaching or management might be my niche. Or like specializing in understanding this area and creating kind of solutions to the esports space might be my niche. So let's go back into coaching. A lot of people were once again reaching out to me to get some coaching from me. So I thought it was a great opportunity. And then somehow more people hit rank 1, more people got challenger, and word spread. And then basically the top oceanic organization at the time reached out and said, hey, we want you to be our head coach. And I said, all right, let's go. Because
Let's try.
Yeah,
Let's double in
because
that
at
too.
that point I had a lot of like, first of all, it was a really good role for my resume because it was a head coach and general manager role. So even if the money wasn't great,
you learn
you learn a lot about the business aspect of things, and you also can take that as a different kind of weapon for when you look for a different job opportunity, right? And I was actually very hesitant initially because I knew the kind of I knew about the monsters in the closet per se about the esports industry, about how fast they were burning venture capital money, how unsustainable it was, how much money they were losing every single year, the insanely inflated salaries. But I really enjoyed what I was doing. and I always thought it was like a win-win. So what I told myself was I would give myself 1 year to be an esports coach, or to be involved in esports in some capacity. And if I don't, climb through the ranks within that year, so by climb through the ranks, I mean probably get scouted to a bigger market like North America or Europe, I would quit and just go back to university because I only had 1 year left at that time on a 6-year
Right.
course. And then I got scouted to go to Golden Guardians, which is like the Golden State Warriors esports division, as the assistant coach for the academy team. It was, a dream kind of opportunity for someone like me because it was very, very hard to
Mm,
make it out of my region at the time. Oceania is known as probably like the worst region in League of Legends. Practically impossible
sure.
to get out, and the only people that had got an opportunity outside of uh, the gold outside of Oceania was actually uh, professional players or ex-professionals that turned coaches, whereas I was a non-ex pro that just got that
Yeah.
chance, and that was obviously insanely rare to see.
Yeah.
I think there was actually one before me called Scott Westonway Farmer. I think he worked for Excel. I don't know if it was 2019. I can double check, but um, he had one. I think 2019 or so. So yeah,
Mm,
it was 2019 where he got an opportunity. But other than him, where he worked as an analyst, there was no real coach that went to North America after year, and I managed to land that gig. So that's kind of how my esports career started. It wasn't intentional, but I think what helped was I took it seriously, and I didn't. I realized the issues in the space, and I realized that whenever you're in a mentoring position or a leadership position, you should never take this lightly because you directly influence the people that you work with, right? You have a direct
mm.
impact on their lives and their future, and that's not something to be taken lightly ever.
Right. No, for sure. Like it's a great story to start off with, and I think everything that you just mentioned screams, serious. What I hear is, and everyone else listening or watching this video is like dedication. Having goals, knowing what you're doing, and I think that is so difficult for so many to stick with, right? Everyone has goals, everyone has ambitions, but it feels like you were really deliberately setting out your goals. You were really aware of like the overview of like where you are, where you want to go, how to get experience, how to do things, and also the way you communicate it feels so like just like really like shrug face, like, this is just what I do. Um, can you tell a little bit where you got that seriousness or this type of mentality mindset from? Because I believe many coaches are jealous. Like, I would love to be as hard as working as you. How can they do it? How can they develop such serious, developing, expansive, overviewing mindset like
I mean,
yours?
I've said it publicly a few times in several other podcasts, but I've never really spoken about it in detail. Basically, I grew up in quite a disadvantaged kind of household.
Mm,
Parents separated when they were young. Grew up around substance abuse. Had a lot of like financial difficulties
yeah,
at home because of the separation. you know Father lived his own life, mother lived her own life, then had to leave home at 17. I was homeless at 17, so slept in the
yeah,
university library, and then and just kind of worked through multiple jobs that way. And so when you live that kind of life, you kind of have an appreciation to of the small things. You appreciate the roof over your head, you appreciate every little moment. And watching the people around me, live their lives in what I deemed as a really wasteful manner, I told myself that, whether or not I am the most academic gifted or even have passion for that area, I'm going to do my best to live my life without regrets. And I think that's kind of the core foundation of my identity as a human being.
mm,
And I can confidently say that I did work hard when I left home. I did. I did every other job that people always talk about, or people always claim to never want to do ever, right? So people joke about McDonald's, but that's like nothing, right? Cleaning toilets, being a waiter,
yeah,
whatever you had to do to kind of survive and to to make ends meet while studying and whatnot. And the only regret that I have so far, I would say, is the fact that I wasn't really that inclined to academia. I think it's just because of the way I grew up. I was always driven by results and driven by you know um, career and stability, and that's kind of what I wanted. And it was very hard.
Because you didn't had it
Yeah,
from
I mean,
the previous
yeah,
years, basically
exactly.
your whole
And I didn't really
upbringing.
see past what I mean. I didn't really see what studying could bring me, because studying was something very close to like going to gym, right? You're not going to look fit overnight. It provides probably the greatest amount of
Right.
stability if you study the right subject and get a good job, but you don't see that overnight. And I wanted that overnight. I wanted that now. I wanted to stop working. And I think, in hindsight, that is something that I do regret for sure. But that's kind of the core foundation of my identity. And I think that really drove me. I was making, I think, 300 euros. So like, it was 200. It would have been like 400 Australian dollars per month when I first joined esports, which
That's
was a
nothing.
lot less than what I would make just working a normal job. And I took
Yeah.
that gamble because I really believed that I could get somewhere. And so, was getting up at 5 a.m. to cook, clean the house, do head coaching roles as well, doing paychecks, doing accounting. That was kind of my life in 2020, and that's kind of, I think, what led to me developing my game knowledge, me developing my skill set. Nowadays, it's not like that at all. As I said, my my priority is always to live my life without regrets. Nowadays, I have a lot more balanced lifestyle. I put a lot of importance
Right.
on my partner, right? My relationship, my people, like, so my players or the people around me, my friends.
Yeah.
I have a lot more of an importance on that because these things are not tangible, right? And obviously, I'm able to do that now because I have a lot more stability financially, right? But I can say at the beginning of my career throughout 2020, 2021, I did some ungodly hours, for sure. Some really ungodly hours, And these hours were not something
Mm.
that I was um, foreign to because I had done that before. I had
Yeah.
done the 8 to 1 shift and then the 2 to 6 shift into the 7 to 3 a.m. shift before. I had done that before while studying. So it was
Yeah.
like, whatever, right?
I also saw on your Twitter, right? Um, something along the lines of like, I've been here before, I'm gonna go at it
Yep,
again, right? So now you maybe fall into a hole or maybe are unsure of the future, even though I think you will be all right in some form or
maybe.
way. Um, do you feel like, okay, this urge of survival is also coming up again? You feel it in your fingers and every fiber of your body, that you feel like, okay, I need to fight again, being able to do this, not the same as back then, but in a different setting, a different environment
Yeah, I
right
mean, it's
now.
not like, I don't talk about this much often, but whenever you lose a job, and then you have a certain life, or you've had stability and you don't, you know, this brings up a lot of those past emotions, right? So yeah, I mean, you always feel that need to fight. Every day there is a certain level of anxiety. There's probably some mental health problems that I have. But yeah, I mean, I definitely
Yeah.
have that urge to fight, that urge to kind of get there and put myself in a good position. The truth is, esports orgs are self motivated. They're driven by what brings the org benefit, right? And that's always just going to be that way. And so they're always going to look for candidates that don't have partners, that don't have their own value set. They're looking for robots and kind of machines to fill the spots that they need, right? And so
Mm.
that's kind of the challenge, and why I said, hey, there might be a chance I don't get another opportunity in esports. But whatever I decide to do, right? If I decide to leave esports, say I decide to work as an Amazon delivery driver or something, I have full confidence through the skill set that I've developed over the years to generate value for enough people where I can bring that stability in my life again. And so that's what I mean by,
Mm.
it's never a great feeling to be teamless, and I think these kind of values are something that I've paid for throughout my entire career. So in 2021 with the Golden Guardians, you know, I stating what is right and what is wrong. These things cost you,
Yeah.
you know, um, and I've always paid that price, always.
What does it have, cost you? Like
My
it's
job
sort of insinuated
cost me
and
my job. I
everything.
mean, I won't talk about the exact details of what happened,
Yeah.
but when you bring up what is right and what is wrong, you know, then in most cases, whatever industry that you work in, not just esports, your job and your role and your position, it will be dictated by what the managers decide to do. So certain management
Mm.
will listen to that and will hear to that and reward that and grow these people. And certain pieces of management don't want to hear that because it's extra work for them, it's extra problems for them, it's things that they need to solve. And it's not in their interest, right? It might be in the company's interest, but it might not be in their interest, and in that case you lose your job. So that's something that I've always stood by, and I will always stand by that,
Yeah.
right? And when I had done that in 2021, that was a dream job in a way. I was flying over to the United States. That was something that I could just keep my mouth shut,
Yeah.
and I did what I had to do, and I will always do that. So even coming on this podcast and talking about that, there's a very real chance that employees might look at this and be like, I don't want to work with this guy because he will create problems, or he will bring up problems that need to be solved, right? But in
Mm.
reality, my value set will always stay the same, which is do the right thing, right? And if you're hired by a company, it's in your interests, or it should be in your interests to make that company go in the right direction in your own way.
Right. Yeah. So you say like your value set is doing the right
Yeah.
thing. Um, when I think about values and creating them, of course, everyone has innate
Mhm.
values that they know is true when they, that's how they navigate through
Yep.
life. But you can also create them, like by defining it, by really asking yourself difficult questions or situations to put yourself in to understand what your
Mhm.
values are. You say, you know, choosing what is right and that direction. Do you also have other values? So let's assume, I'm not sure, not trying to put you on the spot, but also for the people listening to this, like how do you or can discover your values, or how do you do that, or is there more than values to you than just going for
Well,
what
I'm
is
not.
right? Because it's maybe so abstract, right? Is there more maybe definition behind it, or your values in
I'm not a
particular?
complex person, right? The way that I define values is if I go to bed that night, right? Can I go to bed
Hmm.
comfortably? Like when you
Right.
wake up in 10 years' time, are you going to think about that time and be like, oh, shit, I shouldn't have done that? Right? I mean, when I talk about doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing, and I want to make this very clear to like anyone that's watching, maybe there's some management people watching as well, but this doesn't mean, oh, I want to pay $10 billion to every single player. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, obviously there is a thing called economics, and there is a thing called supply demand, and there's a thing called
Right.
realistic, and
Right.
there is what you need to do from business perspective. But what I mean is, how do we operate as a company or as a team? What is the right and wrong thing to do to your players and to say to your players, right? And one tier, for example, is for me like family and my people will be above
Hmm.
my career, and it should be for all of everyone in any industry. It doesn't matter, right? Because these people are intangible. Money and career, they could disappear overnight, but your people don't if you have the right
Oh,
people. So that's what I mean. And it's kind of the same when I look at my players. What kind of values are we preaching to our players? If our values, and this is something that I disagree with heavily, if your value is League of Legends 24/7 and that's all you have, that's a really sad value, and that's a really sad life. I mean, maybe that's good for your organization. I'm not saying don't be obsessed with competition. I'm not saying don't be obsessed with winning and being the best. That is something very common that you see in traditional sports as well. Like when you look at
hmm.
MJ and whatnot, you have to make sacrifices. That's common. But what I'm saying is when you have to choose, when you absolutely have to choose, and there's no choice to make, right? I'm not talking about time spent or whatever. When you have to choose between a crucial moment, you need to be able to, I think, define and have a clear tier list on what's important to you. For me, what's important to me is my family and will always be. If I have a choice between being there in the last moments of, say, a family member versus, I mean, that is an intangible, right? That is something that I'll do, right? Always over my career. And these are the things
Mm.
that you need to be able to define. So yeah, I mean, my value set is very simple. If I wake up in the morning and I can go to, if I wake up in the morning and I don't feel like shit and I can go to bed and I know that I've done the right thing, then that's a life well lived.
Mm. Yeah, I think that is pretty straightforward and simple, as you say. I do feel like, for giving your story and your story about your background, do you feel like these values derive from also that story?
Yeah, I mean, I saw.
Like for that, because I'm trying to put it together with someone else. Maybe he has like a perfect operating upbringing, the perfect family and everything. um have, and he feels like, okay, like the family is there, should it be also for me? I know it's for you, right? So how do you see this, like when you're trying to work with other coaches and have, they can respect or tolerate your values and it works together, but where do you draw the line in terms of values? And do they need to align with you all the time, or do you feel like, this is, I need to do what's right for me, and I need to be able to sleep at night, and what they do, it's up to them? How do you feel that, in the environment, staff meetings, players, or organization
I
wise?
mean, the best way to kind of explain this to you is like, I had a person tweet me the other day, and he was going off about
Okay,
pay your interns.
I believe I saw
Yeah.
saw that,
And
or
you know what? Like, I agree. I'd love to pay my interns. That's like a number one value set. I run a company. So for those people listening, I run a company. We're a small startup kind of passion project. I don't take a salary. My co-founder doesn't take a salary. We pay all our coaches a very good salary, a fair salary, but there's a limited amount of resources and there's things that need to be done, right? So we can either leave them
okay,
undone, or we could have someone come in that really wants something to add to their portfolio. We can teach them a bunch of things. Like my co-founders, for example, incredibly intelligent man. I worked for very big companies, did millions in revenue. Um, and a lot of people pay him to like learn from him, right? So we put up that post, and he was kind of talking about how his values are better than mine, and how he needs to that you need to pay interns. I mean, my belief is very simple. Like, I'm not here to virtue signal. Me me prioritizing my family, me prioritizing my partner is because of my circumstances and because of my beliefs. And
right,
so I'm not going to push that onto other people, right? But these are things that are non-negotiables for me, and how I live my life and how I make my decisions. It's up to me and only me, right? And so that's kind of what I mean by that. I do believe, from a mental health standpoint, from a performance standpoint, there's a lot of correlation between increased performance and having something outside of esports as a hobby.
mm,
Having a backup plan. That's why when you don't, and there is also a high incidence rate of better mental health when it comes to this, and which is why I push it so much. But I'm not going to be like, you need to live your life this way. I don't believe that. Everyone has their own values, everyone has their own belief system, and that's fine, right?
mm,
And I actually think that a lot of these value kind of preachers tend to be hypocrites. They go on, social media, and they talk about how great they are, but then you look into their personal life. Have they ever held a job before? Have they ever ran a business before? Have they provided value to other people? Have you worked in a charity before? I have. I volunteered countless hours of my time for free
yeah.
doing internships and things like that, and I don't have a problem. So why is it up to them to make a decision for me, right? That's kind of how I see it. And so, yeah,
Oh, that's totally true. I cannot agree more.
yeah. I mean,
So yeah.
I'm not like left wing or right wing. I don't really care for politics, and I don't really talk about that. But just in general, for me, that's just what I believe in, and I guess that's it really about that topic.
Yeah, no, for sure. So to switch, like you just also mentioned, like, okay, some regrets, right? Regrets, some things you would have done differently in your life. To maybe shift the conversation, or this podcast also a little bit, because fans are listening to you, like, what would you've done differently in the last split, right? You mentioned something like, oh, I underperformed, I didn't do my thing, or that was basically sort of the vibes or feels. So if you would look back, we just mentioned regret. Is there anything you would regret, or maybe some points of context without saying exactly what needs to be said or what happened, but a little bit of context of last split and how you see yourself and maybe some things you've changed, etc. Something about that. I think that's really insightful.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I've done poorly is manage my stress. We had some. I had some personal things happen. Some members of family passing away, etc. Or my partner's family passing away, etc.
Mm,
And when that kind of stuff happens, it's never easy on anyone's mental health. So I just wish I had managed my kind of mental health and my stress a lot better through either therapy or, I mean, these are all things that have shown a lot of kind of benefit. So that's something that I could have done. And I think because I didn't manage my stress, I didn't really put in the 110% that I could have in terms of giving value to my players. That being said, I still think that what I did at Heretics, the value that I brought to these teams were very, very good. I'm proud of the work that I had done. It's just I do think that that kind of affected my ability. And the other thing was, and a big lesson I learned this year was like how to deal with people better. Um, you know,
mm,
I have some. I mean, in esports, well, not just esports, any competitive industry, you sometimes put in a situation where even if you have values that are non-negotiable, you are stuck with you know people that have different values, and you have that this is something that you have to work around, right? And
yep.
so what I could have done was maybe support support a player. So our mid laner from spring and winter, I think I could have supported that player a
Mm,
lot more instead of just trying to focus on helping him perform better, right? Just from a mental standpoint, and instead of focusing on just on game stuff and trying to help him with the game stuff, just reduce that load with the understanding that, hey, this is maybe the limit,
mm,
this is all they can do, and that's okay. So these are some regrets that I have. But overall, like, I think that, as I said, the body of work that I showed this year, the impact that I had on my players, that's not something that I would struggle to sleep with at night. And in the end,
mm.
this year wasn't a year where I would, you know, lose sleep over and be super sad about, because I did what I could do.
Yeah, I think that's a good one, especially based on your values that you want to sleep at night and knowing that you've did your best. Um, I think you are very a competitive person that strives always for the 110%, just like you said. Not like in terms of saying, but I actually believe that you actually always want to give 110%, not 100%. You always want to over deliver in what you do in terms of their presence, maybe support and everything. Don't you feel like in terms of like stress also that you are too hard for yourself? Because I see so many esports coaches diving into 60-hour weeks and everything and preparing everything. Their whole life is absorbed by League of Legends. Are you maybe not too hard on yourself in terms of that? Is that also where the stress comes from? Or is it like, no, I love to work hard, it gives me the energy and everything that I need to do to perform and to have the best
I mean, I
impact?
think when you're at the top of any game, not just esports, say in the financial world or in the law world or humanitarian world, whatever industry or whatever kind of niche you're working in, the competition and the stress of the work and your workload is always going to be greater than your average Joe. That's just, or the average 40-hour work week. That's just normal. It's more about how do you manage that and how do you kind of distinguish yourself, and if and define whether or not this is something that you want to continue to do. So this is a choice that I make, right? This is something that I want to do.
Right.
Um, and that being said, there's also like breaks between splits and whatnot for esports as well. You always have some time to be able to disconnect. Um,
Yeah, the
and
off season.
there's a lot of tools that you can use to kind of be better. So or like kind of feel better as well. So
Yeah. What kind of tools do you use or like to use
I
yourself?
mean, for me, I think I have a good support network. I have my partner. I have people. that cheer me on. That's always nice, and obviously like winning and whatnot is nice, and just words of appreciation. Every single player that I worked with this year came to me after my release and said, thank you. These kind of things are also really great for how you feel and your overall stress load,
Mm,
because you know that you've done a good job. A lot of these players coming to me and saying they'd like to work with me again, and these are obviously really, really nice validating kind of words, right? So, and not just words
mm,
actually from
sure.
my previous experience. So that's kind of what helps. It's a combination of a lot of things, right? And then obviously just like exercise and good diet also helps if you can manage to do it. For me, I tend to struggle with that. But from my previous
Mm,
experience, when I did do it, especially during off seasons and whatnot, it's helped a great deal. So what you put in your body, how you sleep, moving, sunlight, having a support network, having other hobbies, these things all help immensely.
yeah. Yeah. It like maybe it's a little bit stupid to say, but it feels like that's what we all know. But that is the thing, right? There is no secret to feeling better. There's no secret to relieving stress. It's like spending time with your loved ones, spending time for yourself, doing other activities, exercising, eating healthy. So yeah, but that is the key, right? I see so many people struggling, maybe because they are young, right? They feel like, oh, I can take it, only 2 hours of sleep, I can take it, eating a month unhealthy or not taking care of myself, and then being on top of it again. But when you really start to be serious, right, about those things, I think many people will see a significant bump in their performance, their clarity, their mind capacity, everything what they can do. So how do you experience that when you have like this off season, right? You come back. What would you say is your mindset, right? You have a fighter mentality, you are hardworking, you want to give 110%. So now you've talked about, okay, I cleared my head, I took care of myself in the best way possible, right? How do you usually go into an off season, or from off season to preseason?
Well, it depends on the team that you have. That's the brutal and honest truth. Of course,
Okay.
like mentally, you always want to be a winner. You always want to lift that trophy. But the truth is, with some rosters, some teams, it's not going to be possible, right? And so, something that I like to do is set some KPIs, key performance indicators on what we think is realistic, what I think is good for the team, what needs to be worked on from a team perspective, both as a coaching staff and as like player support. Um, and results as well. So say you have a bottom two budget team and you don't have the organizational support that you need.
Right.
Sometimes not like winning is not possible, but maybe top three or top four is, or maybe fifth or 60th, right?
Yeah.
Um,
In the
so
in the
so
best
that's something that's
scenario.
really important for people to define. Setting unrealistic expectations is not the way to go. But once you understand and you develop that skill set in kind of setting realistic goals, expectations, having a growth mindset, making the org that you're in better, whether you're a coach or a GM or whatever you do, that should be your priority, and that's kind of what you're hired for. You know,
Mm,
I don't think orgs are stupid. For example, I don't think Astralis goes to their coaches and says we should win. I mean, if they do, they're very, very lost.
yeah.
But even if they're not there to win, they should be there to set once again certain placings. How can we lighten the organizational stress? How can we increase the performance of our players? How can we create the best possible environment with what we have? And how can we better our scouting process? Right? Maybe you can create a
Right.
miracle roster where you can win the whole thing by bringing in a 16-year-old wonder kid that you develop
Yeah. The money ball.
that you develop in the right way over 2 years, having a long term vision. These kind of things
Yeah.
are, I think, what's important. And ironically, I've never really had the opportunity to do that in my career because I've moved up in ranks so quickly. I went from
That you like to
yeah. So this
to. really foster
This is
talent and
something that I
everything. I
really like
think
to do.
that's like the wet dream of the coach, right? To really foster talent and lift the trophy in the
I mean,
highest levels
so this is
at the
something that
end.
I'm really looking to do. I'm really looking for like a general manager or a head coaching role now. Um, you know, I'd really like the opportunity to do that. If you look at my history, I went from top three Oceania, then went to NA. I got technically a promotion if you look at the regions and the
Status,
standards.
yeah,
Then I
have
went to
status, yeah.
regional leagues, top three in France, despite multiple roster changes, um, and coming in as a fixer, and then going into Rogue once again with a big roster change, overperforming, then going in and going from assistant to strategic. So I've historically always been promoted year after year. I've always been brought in as a fixer to come in and fix things
Mm.
to create structure and balance and I do think I excel at that. So I'm really looking forward to having an opportunity. If not, once again, maybe it's a Macca's angle. It is what it is, and then I can find. I mean, it's fine. Really, it's fine. I've done it before. Then I'll do my best in that area, and that is what it is.
Right. So maybe a little bit of lighter, right? A lighter question. If you would go to Macca's, right? Go again. What would be your favorite burger to do, or is it doesn't matter?
Uh,
Is there any favorite thing you like to do,
McDonald's.
like making
Yeah, I mean,
cheeseburgers?
I like the cheeseburger. I like the double apple pies. I like the McFlurries. But to be honest, it's all shit food. So, um, but really, like, I think that this applies even if you're working in a McDonald's chain. Like, I think if I was working in McDonald's as a burger flipper, um, I don't
Okay.
think I would. And that was my position, and that was my realistic kind of situation. I don't think that I would be going to work every day to try to be a burger flipper. I think I would try to excel in that way as well, right?
Yeah.
And you only have one life, so that's really all it's about, really. So
All right. I think I recognize that a lot. Um, my girlfriend, she has also like a cookie business, and her personnel was on vacation, and there was a big order, and I had to help her. I regularly
mhm.
do that, and we were there, and of course she's doing that daily, so she's really fast, really good with everything, right? But I was there and I just wanted to perform as best as I can, as fast, as perfectly cut cookies in the dough and with
Yeah,
everything, right? You want to do everything perfectly. And it's just like, no matter where I came, even when I did dishwashing, when I was 15,
yeah,
16, I always wanted to be the fastest. I always wanted to be the cleanest. I want to be, I remember going into pancake house. Remember there that I was washing dishes for 2 weeks and I already, okay, I believe they said to me, oh, you're pretty fast, you're pretty good, and I was immediately like, okay, how can I make more money? How can I increase my wages? How can I leverage this talent or something? How can I
yeah.
do that? To always strive, no matter if you're dishwasher, turning burgers at Macca's or anything else, just try to excel and perform. Do you, it maybe is right. We are trying to make our position in esports, right? In the whole atmosphere ecosystem, we're trying to earn our spot or make our or get our weapon. That's how you call it. Do you see that this sort of mindset is
No,
necessary to achieve what you want to do? Sometimes I believe so, but you say no. That's interesting. So, what is your view on this type of
no.
mindset to always try to
I
excel
mean,
and
it
do the
just comes
best?
down to like what you enjoy and what kind of person you are. It's the exact same thing that I talked about before about virtue signaling, about that guy coming in and saying, "Pay your interns." Probably never ran a business in his life. Probably never had a job in his life.
Mm,
I mean, from what I've read, it does really sound like that. Um, you know, people live and enjoy different things. Uh, people experience things in their own way, right? I think a big kind of trap is when you live your life, you have like you view it from your own eyes and from your own experience, but everyone has that, right? And
right.
so if people want
Yeah.
to live a life where they're happy with their 9 to 5, I think that's fantastic. Being able to provide a fantastic kind of stable household for your children if you want children. Coming home from work, having your own little time, and then retiring at 65 or 60. Sure, that's if that's how you want to live your life, and that's what you find good, then I think that's respectable, and I understand the value of a good day's work. From my experience, you know,
Mm,
a lot of these people, I would say, are some of the most genuine people you meet, happy people you meet, and if they feel like we have a limited number of years on this earth, right? So when they live their
right.
life and they leave this earth and they become dust or whatever, right? Depends on what religion you come
Mm,
from, or if you're irreligious, doesn't matter. And they feel like, oh yeah, that was a nice life, right? Sure, go ahead, right? For
mm,
me, what I find happiness from, what brings me value, what makes me feel like validated and happy and fulfilled is when I bring value to other people. When
right.
I make the world, when I make everyone around me better, and happier and more fulfilled. Um,
Right. So what you're saying is like I completely agree. So what I said was like in order to have success, but there's a definition for success for
yeah.
everyone else. What I was more referring to, if you want to get as maybe for other coaches to reach the LEC level, to step in your shoes and also have these status improvements through regions and make an impact and provide value, do you then think such mindset is necessary, or do you also see other people who just have this crazy, I don't know, natural talent or something? Because for me personally, I see those other or these similar types of people float to the top over
Well,
the
I think that's
years.
kind of the trap as well. Like, you briefly discussed how you're providing value to more people and whatnot, but like, there's nothing wrong with providing value to a regional league team. There's nothing wrong with providing value to a collegiate team or an amateur team, because they're all people in the end. Like, if that's what you find happiness from, sure. But like, then if I was to answer the question from a competitive sense, like,
Mm,
do you need this to make it to the LEC? I mean, of course you don't. There are people that definitely shouldn't have the jobs that they have. I can tell you that much from my
mm.
experience in the industry. A lot of people in the industry shouldn't have the jobs that they have. They were either there early or they're
Oh,
incredibly underqualified. And there are probably 100 different people that can do it better than them. But it's a matter of staying, longevity, and it's a matter of, will you be replaced or not? I mean, something that I've said in the past was, I think 99% of coaches in esports is going to be replaced by pro players. And I think this is inevitable. And if you want to be a part of that 1%, you really need to be something special and you need to be on top of your game. The truth is, it's like any
mm,
competition. Maybe you get away with hitting rank one in season one in League of Legends because everyone is terrible and, you have better talent and you
yeah.
played a,
Cheese your
yeah, or
way to
maybe
the
you played
top.
a similar game, but like 10 years later, the game is
Yeah.
different. The field is different. Um, and so with any competitive kind of scene, when you look at StarCraft, when you look at football, it doesn't matter what you look at. Of course, you need to have some sort of like killer instinct and kind of that willingness to go further and beyond and to learn and to focus on mastery and performance. Um, because there are 500 other people that want your job. I believe there are 16,000
Yeah.
contracts in Europe, throughout players, managers, and coaches. There are 50 spots in the LEC for players. There are approximately 20, let's just say 35, 40 spots in the
Yeah.
LEC.
Staff. Yeah.
Um, and, it's only going to grow and it's only going to be more difficult, right? So, of course, if you
Mm,
want to make it to that level, you need to put the effort in. I think that you can make your own luck, but it really depends on how you phrase that question. I think there's a lot of ways you can answer that, right? But I think I got
true.
what you were trying to get at.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, for sure. Yeah, yeah, you make it you engage it from different perspectives of
Yeah, that's right.
success and what is needed and how you can
That's right.
see success. And I believe that's true, right? Because there's no LEC without the collegiate level, right? There's no LEC without the amateur or the gamers,
Exactly.
everything. It's all one ecosystem we all need. And for the people who want to compete and thrive, they have their opportunities, right? And if they are wise, hardworking, and put the efforts into the right places, I think they have the best chance to do so. But yeah, it's a different part and depends on the character and personality, everything, right? um So yeah, no, for sure. So what would you say now you have, uh, left your team? What would you say are your ambitions moving into the future? You mentioned head coach and general manager. You were a coach before, assistant coach, really going into the in-game stuff, the analytics and everything. Head coach in general imagine is even more people oriented. How do you like transition to those two? What has changed maybe from that? Was it maybe the opportunity wasn't there? Or how do you see yourself ambition with the things that you've said?
Well, I've been a head coach before. I think
Yeah.
to answer that question, first of all, yeah, there weren't really opportunities to be head coach. I think that it's hard for organizations to give someone like me a chance because, first of all, the people I'm competing with, even if you look at the mid bottom tier teams, their coaches have had twice as much experience than me.
Yeah.
A lot of them come from 2016, 2017, maybe even earlier. I started in 2020. 3, 4 years of
Yeah.
experience is just evidence for these organizations to hire. So that's one. And two is, I think, I mean, there's a lot of, I think I could have had a more diverse and more developed proof of work. And then third is just like my level of communication. I just think that basically the reason I'm not head coach until now is because, quite frankly, I probably didn't deserve to be. I probably didn't have the body of work. I didn't have the references, and so that's why.
Mhm.
As for the future, I don't think head coaching is just about people. I think that managing people is probably a core part of your responsibility. But
Sure.
in the end, the head coach also decides the direction that they want to lead the team in. And even, for example, like last year, I wouldn't really call my job an assistant coach. I would call it closer to a strategic coach. I know that esports teams are very ambiguous when it comes to naming the coaches' roles and defining their roles, but I essentially played the same role as last year than this year, as this year. But in the end, the guy that makes the final button or the decision is going to be the head coach. And I want to show what SeeEl League of Legends SeeEl League of Legends looks like, and how I think that the game should be played. And in the end, that's going to be a head coach position. And then obviously, if not, I'd like to have the opportunity to build something amazing. I've always wanted to uh, build something longer term. Always. I said this to Heretics as well, and it's really a shame. I do
Yeah.
think that part of that blame is on me too, just because of what I believe needs to be done, the size of my contract. I mean, there's a lot of things that come into play, but just the main thing is I've always wanted to build something longer term. I've either had a promotion, or I've had like a better opportunity, or perhaps like the values didn't align so far. As I said, relatively short career. But if given the opportunity, just trying to build everything from ground up, um, kind of making sure that the structure uh, that we bring to teams is going to provide a longer term kind of stability, and
Mhm.
and the foundations to what possibly could be a future dynasty. And that's something that I really want to be able to achieve. So I'd rather be involved in the strategic side of things directly and be like the head coach, or be in part of
All
the
right.
org system.
Yeah. So that's why the GM
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
HC basically to have a more influence on that direction, strategic
mhm,
control, and the final say
yeah,
of things. You also mentioned a couple of times in your story throughout this podcast about like structure,
yeah.
stability, framework, all of those things. So can you tell maybe just the audience a little bit what your thoughts or ideas are, how you view structure? For me, it's very very easy. It's the fundamental most fundamental thing in order to have sex, to have success, not sex, but success. um what is it for you? How do you view it?
Depends on your organization again. So, like, what are the values of the organization? What is the direction that the organization wants to that the organization wants to take? If the organization is about surviving because they are owned
Mm.
by venture capitalists and they want to survive as long as possible and sell their position, that's very, very different to someone that says you
Oh
define the
yeah.
values and you define. what you can do, right? Um, because then your strategy when it comes to building a team changes, right? That being said, I do think that
Sure.
the core structure behind your value sets, however much money you're investing into any business, uh, doesn't need to be purely defined by money alone. It can be defined by the way that you operate, right? So, first of all, how is your scouting process? If you scout really, really well, you probably don't need to change players often, right? You probably can keep them on longer term contracts.
Yeah.
Um, so I think scouting is probably like the biggest one. How do you operate day to day? So how do you support your players, um, and and you know allow them to have the opportunity to perform? And same for the coaches. What kind of environment do you give to your coaches? Is there a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy? Um, and then
Did you ever had to deal with that? A lot of paperwork and
yeah,
bureaucracy?
definitely. Yeah, I would say so.
Really?
I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and then finally, how much? I mean, there's things that you can change as well, right? Like things that you can't change as well, right? So you can't change the money aspect on what an org wants to do and their goals. While you stay there, you can do your best to create the best possible results or whatever. But then there's like, okay, how much involvement does the owner want to play in your business? I mean, there are a lot of little things that could happen. Just the main thing is just creating a foundation, a set rule set, organized kind of delivery of these rule sets would be what structure is for me in order to create a set level of consistency, right? Um,
Mm.
and I think if done the right way, in most cases, unless it's an organization that is, uh, overruled by, basically, I'm not doing the GM role and the owner is or whatever, right? Unless it's something catastrophic like
Yeah.
that, I think that you can be an organization that players want to play for and people that want to be in and create a lot of success. A great example of this is Carmine Corp. If you look at
Mm.
KC's success in the ERLs, you know, part of being a part of a really fun organization like K Corp, having Kameto,
Mm.
Uh, the French content creator, Kameto, and I forgot the other guy's name. But anyway, uh, you know, that what made talent want to come to them. They created an amazing fan base. They let their
Yeah.
players go, and gave them opportunities in the LEC, previously, right? And they gave them the support that they need, right? And they're definitely not paying the highest, right? But they're still seeing a lot of
Mm.
success. So this is one example.
But they stand out by a mile compared to other teams in terms of like their whole atmosphere, the whole team
Yeah,
environment, or at least perceived from the outside, feels magical.
yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, another team that I think does really well in terms of like creating a fan base is, for example, Vitality. Vitality has an incredible fan base. They're called the Golden Hornets, and there's also another one called the SV Group. They still support the ex players and coaches to this day, right? That's also incredible.
Mm.
I'm not sure how the contract side of things go, the business side of things go. I think that's probably their problem, right, in terms of their operations, given their results, but and organizational stress or whatnot. But like, I think just some of these structures create a team that people want to support, right? And that's
Mm.
another example of structure per se, right? Caring about your fans, um, and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that's pretty interesting how or I believe just good perspectives on structure and how to set up a team and make them successful and consistently perform, because that's what everyone wants, right? Because it's so difficult. Humans are not linear, right? It's pretty chaotic. It can go up and then it can go really down. There's so many influences and life strings pulling, right? So many people would only look at the player, but there's a person with a life, just like you had, with your family and everything, right? Something can happen, and in an instant the whole dynamic needs to change, and there's chaos, and you need to do your best to get back from chaos to structure again to perform and be consistent. So it's always um, a little bit of a juggling, right? There. So in order to maybe an interesting perspective as well for everyone. You just mentioned the head coach and everything. You've been assistant coach. How would you say or describe your own personal coaching style? How you interact with players, right? Because they can see your viewers, or I mean your videos and YouTube, and that's how you coach. But maybe is there something else, or maybe a little bit of the backside of it, as terms of context, why you do the things, how you do them?
I mean, it just comes down to leading by example. I think you set out your value system. You talk about what you think is right and wrong, and just like doing what you can by through example. I tend to be a little bit more of the direct side in terms of like my leadership style, but I really believe in uh, developing bonds through building trust. I think that in a team you can't, or you can't have a successful team where players don't trust each other, where people don't trust each other. And even
Mhm.
if you manage to,
Sure.
by some miracle, make this team successful, it's not going to last a long time. And the way that you create this trust is you make them feel like they're important because you do care about their well-being. I think this is like a core kind of um, task as a coach, any coach, whether you're a head coach or
For
an assistant
sure.
coach or a head coach, it doesn't really matter. Um, and I mean, it's in a way very similar to an organization, right? So I talked about family and whatnot. I personally know that if I feel like an organization cares about me, cares about my family, cares about my well-being, then my loyalty, my work ethic towards that organization is going
Mhm.
to be 10x. And this is something that I
Sure.
applied to my own business as well, right? It cost me money, right? A lot of my money, especially relative to how much I'm worth. But if it means doing the right thing, and if it means creating that longer term stability, then that's how it is, right? If you look at traditional, not even like, I mean, sports and like traditional esports is even more significant because you have to perform on stage and you have to essentially trust your back to each other, right? But even in like
Mhm.
small restaurants, right? Um, if the customer feels like they're cared for, they're going to come back.
Yep.
If the customer likes the
Exactly.
likes the service and likes the product, they're going to come back. If an employee feels like they're looked after, they're going to work extra hard and they're going to try and look after you. And if they feel good and they're trying to look after you, they'll look after the customer, right? It's the same shit. Like it's the same shit
Yep.
whenever you're working with people in the end. I think
Yep.
it's all the same. When you're trying to develop a team or when you're trying to make a team successful, once they once you kind of create an environment where they all feel safe and they all feel like they can trust each other, that creates the solid foundations to overcome any hurdle. The specifics behind operating a League of Legends team is a little bit more complex because you need to understand the game. But I think that that's like the
Yep.
most important part, not the game knowledge, actually, from my personal experience, because the players play the game all day, right? So I'd say that is kind of how I coach. I actually am known in the industry as the guy that knows quite a bit about the game. Actually, I mean, I'm sure you've heard
Mhm.
feedback, and I'm sure you heard stuff as well. But at least from the feedback I've received and from what I've heard around the scene, um, but that's not entirely true, right? I don't think that's entirely true. A lot of my seasons go from me being a 7 out of 10 in mastery in a certain topic to an 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 because I'm learning from the players as we go, because I'm able to,
Right.
like, I'm trying to facilitate that kind of environment and I'm constantly learning and I'm constantly like listening.
Yeah. People forget, I believe, just like, maybe they have an opinion about you in 2018 or 2020 when you entered
Yeah,
the scene, and that is their
yeah,
image, right? But they forget that we're almost 4 years ahead in
yeah.
time now, where you can develop, where you can improve, where you can change your perspectives. Everything can change in so many years. So yeah, it's fair to say that, it's good that you
I
mentioned it,
mean,
that what was then is not the
and
same
here's
as
the
now.
thing, like, as a coach, you're always going to grow, right? Well, not just, it doesn't matter what you do, you're always going to try to grow, or you should, especially in a competitive industry. And so, do you want to be
Sure.
remembered as the smartest guy in the room, or do you want to be remembered as a person I mean, as a leader per se, because you're a coach, you're not a player, right? If you're a player, you probably want to be remembered as a
Mm,
guy that's like really, really good at the game. That's probably more beneficial. But as a coach, you probably want to be remembered as a guy that makes the right decisions and is known as a man of integrity. And I can promise you, even though my game knowledge was lacking X number of years ago, their opinions of me would always be positive, and my trajectory will
yeah.
always be positive, and that's why it's super important. And the other thing is, um, yeah, I guess that summarizes it.
Yeah. Sort of perspective of doesn't matter what they maybe think when they think back of you, but may more so how they feel when they mention your name or something, right? What kind of
Yeah,
emotions were
I mean,
sprung up,
coaching.
when you feel warm and taken care of, listened to. Those are
I mean,
really
the thing
impactful.
is, and here's the difficult part about being a League of Legends coach. I actually think the leadership part is difficult, but it's achievable by anyone if they have like a moderate level of EQ. The difficult part is
Mm,
the in-game stuff, right? So, for example, if you have 5 different players, all 5 of these players are often going to have a different view on a situation or the game. So, performing on
yeah,
stage is about a promise. It's a promise that you make to each other that you'll play in a certain way, right? And
yeah,
that's why trusting each other is so important. Because if they trust each other, do you think they'll trust the coach? Probably, right? And if they trust the coach, when you make that decision, when you kind of bring these guys together and make them make a promise to each other, that's how you have a really cohesive team. And that kind of
mm,
summarizes my coaching style, right? Finding the right
yeah,
solution. So you really need both. You need the game knowledge, but I think that you can't do without the other.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
100% agree. Like everything, it's about the
yeah,
people, right? They just try to click in the game, and everyone has a different perspective. Everyone has the best intention to win and to cooperate, but all these different perspectives, if you can combine them together by finding the right solution or answer or the right thing to do with your team, this is where you see your, just skyrocket and really find that cohesion and really have that amazing
yeah. I
feeling.
mean, when I joined Heretics, the first thing I said when we got together in Madrid was, I don't have a deep voice like Yamato Kan is very famous for his speeches, right? I'm not the
The guy was
Yeah,
19 looking like a
I mean, sure.
35. It
I'm
was
not the
amazing.
most, inspiring person. I'm not the most intelligent person, and I'm not going to be the most charismatic person, right? But I am going to look after them, right?
Mm,
Coaching, I mean, at least for me, coaching is never about the coach. It's about the players. How can you make them feel good? How can you put them in a situation where they can perform to the best of their ability? And sometimes it can be difficult being in a supporting position, but doing your best in that way. And I think I held true to that, And to be honest, like
mm,
there are times in my career that I was probably straight up cringe. There are times in my career where I probably just made the wrong decisions, right? But they're not going to look back on those years and be like, he was a shit coach ever. I don't think ever.
mm.
They're going to look back and think that you did a pretty good job, because that's the
Yeah,
philosophy, and it's very hard to fuck up when you think of it like that.
yeah. You see it as progression, and it's okay. Like you just take responsibility for the
Exactly.
past, and but that was part of who you are now.
Yeah,
So you cannot neglect that part because that made you who you are today. And I think we can both can say the better version.
sure.
A little,
Yeah,
little slash doubt. But no, I believe so.
yeah.
I like to believe so. So in order to slowly getting to the end, I would like to um, put you a little bit in the spotlight of what you're doing right now. You're building something with League of Legends and trying to make things accessible. Can you maybe explain the audience what you're doing, how you view things, why you've started it, etc., and how you see it going into
Well, I
the
think
future?
everyone's wanted to have some sort of lesson in their life. It could be esports coaching, it could be mathematics, it could be physics, it could be whatever you struggle with. Maybe it's a guitar lesson, maybe it's a drum lesson, but it's not easy to get these kind of lessons, because often the price point of these one-to-one coaching sessions tend to be quite expensive. Um, and in other industries, for example, music, you could probably get like group music sessions in person or whatnot. But what we're really trying to do is like reduce that cost for esports as well, or and potentially other industries in the future by creating these
Mm.
classrooms online, and creating our own platform. So we're not, I wouldn't say we're just like an esports coaching startup. We're actually an edutech kind of technology company as well. Like what we're really developing on the tech side is a platform where people can take classrooms, ask questions live, raise a hand, be a
Mm.
part of a live service, with the intention of making all learning significantly cheaper. So, for example, when you go and get coaching in esports, you would go to like Metafy. I'm not sure if you have to beep that out, but like X company,
Yeah.
Y company,
No,
Gamer,
no, no, no.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
you can say
Gamer
gamer
Sensei,
sensei. You can even mention your
yeah,
own
but
company. I
they,
don't
but
care.
they,
It's my
but they,
podcast.
do, they charge 10, 20, 30, $40 an hour often. Your average price point
Yeah.
is probably like 25 to $30 an hour. Um,
Yeah,
the
approximately.
expensive
Yeah.
ones over
Listen.
100 an hour. And to be honest, let's be real. As someone that coaches a kids game for a living, it's a little bit too much for what is a non-transferable skill. I think that there's a lot to learn from esports and a lot to learn that you can get from any kind of competitive industry, because you can learn like
Mm.
risk management, you can learn about perseverance, you can learn a lot of things, right? But the actual mechanics of the
Yeah.
game that you would learn from the majority of this coaching
Yeah.
is it's
Pretty
useless,
useless.
right? Like at least with a guitar, guitar lessons, you can go to any place that has a guitar and play the guitar or piano, right? If you learn mathematics,
Yeah.
wherever you go, it's probably going to be useful in one way or shape or form, unless you're studying like theoretical physics.
Yeah.
With League, it's really kind of
Gotcha.
useless. So it's too much. And basically, what we're doing is, because we're making these classrooms and we're creating this platform, our classes will cost, well, our classrooms currently cost 50 cents to the hour. So $10 a month or $20 a month, you get access to 20 to 40 hours of coaching, 2 classrooms a day, 5 days a week. So one classroom and then one-to-one group
Yeah.
class. So you just hand in your VOD, you get it reviewed in front of the class. People can be involved, people can watch. And then if you miss any of these classrooms, you can watch it in the content library. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. There's a lot more to that business. I mean, for example, after kind of training, you can go and like we're developing a thing called Parable League, so people can actually play as well. So people can actually learn,
Right.
people can actually practice, play, learn, and grow throughout ecosystem and platform. And then kind of our long term vision is after we create this platform, we can copy and paste it to any industry, math, science, whatever it is. So that's kind of what we're doing. Um,
Right. So really math science. So like you can even write
Golf,
schools, university, and just like, okay, instead of doing one-on-one tutoring
that's still
with
good trivia.
a with a teacher, you can do it in one versus many, like in terms of like a group coaching for $10 a month. You can study mathematics and you can do your homework or your equations
Yeah.
and everything. You can give that to the teacher and then it will be presented and
So I think
explained,
this
etc.
month
So
to kind
similar.
of go over the numbers, we're up 53% in subscriptions, 63% up in unique visitors, 31% up in net revenue. Like we are growing every month, month to month. Kind of the thought process is we see a lot of like independent content creators do something similar, nothing as in depth and well developed, because we actually build a curriculum, we build lectures, we build slides, just like traditional education.
Mm.
Um, but down the line, we'd want to make it even cheaper. So and make coaching accessible to really anyone, right? Because I do think that games like League of Legends have such a high kind of barrier to entry. Um,
Right.
and I think what we do solves that, right? And it comes down to like my philosophy again about business and life and coaching as well, just about structure, about having things organized, looking after the customer. It's the same thing. And so
Yeah,
that's
same
what we're
values.
doing.
Same
Yeah,
values
I mean, I
apply.
have this
Yeah.
tech whiz that I'm working with, a team of 21, I think 22 now. Um, and once we finish developing this platform, we'll launch 2.1 and 2.2, Parable 2.2, and eventually go to other esports games as well.
Mm. Will it stay currently? I believe it's only on Discord,
Yeah,
right? Where you have the classes,
yeah. So
classrooms,
we
and
run.
everything. Will it stay on Discord, or do you really try to make different platforms like some of the edu tech esports type of
That's what I
things
mean.
one
Like
would
we're
like?
more of a tech because we're already in the midst of developing a streaming platform outside of Discord. So you will be able to learn from our site, and kind of have everything on there, right? And there's a lot more to this business that I'm not really saying because I think it's a competitive advantage, and that's for later. But
Mm.
at the moment we're doing it on Discord because it's convenient. It's very similar to what we want to do.
Yeah.
It's
It's
free,
free.
but down the line, that's not. We don't think it's as scalable. So we are creating our own platform, and I think our website redesign goes live
Mm.
in. I mean, it's already technically live tomorrow, but it's going to be for private testing, so you won't be able to see it. But after testing, we'll release it,
Mm.
and then we're going to launch the next things in 4 to 8 months, maybe 12 months, depending on if there's any delays.
Yeah, sounds good. So, is there anything else you would like to mention about your
Yeah, I
business?
mean, we're a business that's ethical. I lose a shit ton of money every month, by the way, guys. So, all of our coaches,
Donos
I
below.
mean, no, our coaches, all go through a training program. We train our coaches. So that's the difference. We build a curriculum. So we have things prepared and topics that we want to talk about with slides and videos and examples. And as I said, it's piss cheap, $10 a month, $20 a month. Used to be double with half the prices permanently. Because as I said, for me and Evan, like the two founders, it's not about money, right? What we're doing is not about money. What we're doing is about creating value for people. And my belief is always this: if you chase your passion, money will follow, right? If it doesn't
Yeah.
follow, at least you will be happy. You won't regret it.
Mm.
If you do the right thing and you look after your customers, right, then the customers will look after you. So please feel free to check us out. At the moment, our website is built by me. I have zero tech background. I built it on a website builder, so it's disgusting. But once our site goes live, it'll be a lot more smoother, and I really hope that you guys come check us out because as I said, all our coaches are trained, they're challenger or they're ex-professionals, and they're super good. So ex or current professionals,
All right. All right.
and it's
Thumbs
ethical,
up.
by the way. We pay
All
them a
right.
salary, so it's ethical. We don't take free
Yeah.
work.
Except for the interns.
I mean that too. By the way, we had a long discussion about this. I was so hesitant.
I'm joking.
Okay, here's the caveat. I'm actually for paid internships too. Like I'm actually really for paid internships, but
Yeah.
it just comes down to this: like we have these positions vacant. I want to pay these guys, so I'm not going to expand my team otherwise. Whereas my co-founder's view is, but there are so many people that really need something in their portfolio. This is something they need, right? And you have a limited amount of resources. This is something exciting. When we get money, we can pay them, right? So it's like
Mm.
he believes it's a win-win. Um, Makes sense. So I'm following through, right? But we are an
Yeah.
ethical business, as I said. We pay above market rate. Like some of these guys that work for us make way more than they would coaching professionally. We pay more than, for example, like one of my coaches gets $30 an hour. So like, it's
Yeah.
not, it's not. It's way more than what you would get working in a regional league in the Balkan leagues where you make 500 euros a month working full time.
For sure. For sure. No, I think it's all good business, and don't worry. I was just a little bit joking of the previous comment, right? Wink, wink. But yeah, Chris, aka Seal, we're slowly coming to an end. So, what I always ask, the coaches that come on this podcast is, what is the final piece of advice? I believe you've provided a lot of perspective, insights, values, structures, how you do things, how you perceive things, how you can think about things. But what would you say, like, is something you would like if tomorrow every other coach gets this? Is it printed into their, uploaded into their brain? What
I
would
mean,
that
I
be?
talk about a lot of like coaching specific things. Um, you know, in a lot of other podcasts and like content that I do. But that's not as important. What's actually important is, as a coach, the first step you should be taking is define what's important to you. Define what's important to you, and have a really clear value set and develop your skill sets around that, right? Because talking well or just knowing the game well is just like so surface level. Creating team culture, bringing
Mm,
people together, um, understanding what you're talking about. I mean, everything is really important. Just like how, every click, every decision, every thought in their head, what they eat for breakfast is important for a player, the way that you think, the way that you move, the way that you behave, these things are all important as well. And so when you want to focus on these, you have a never ending list of things that you need to work on. And it gets very complex. So start off by defining what's important to you, right? Okay, is family and having a personal life important to you, right? And do you think that this is important for your players? Then how can you kind of have that core value imprinted into your training philosophy, right? How can you support your players so they feel good about their personal lives? They feel good when they come on scrims and they practice, right? Because every single coach that listens to this podcast would know when you have a 5-game scrim set or a 6-game scrim set, right? The game 5 and 6 a lot of the time are trash. Like you are so tired by that time. It's so trash. Yeah. So how productive did that scrim session feel? How every single game, a lot of the time people will say it was pretty shit after game 2, game 3, or it's pretty shit between game 3 and game 4, or it's pretty shit after game 1. It's like, how can you make that better? Well, you make them feel good to start off with. You make sure that you have that value set, and they know that when they step on that training ground, they're there to practice, right? But outside of the game, you have their backs, they're safe. So yeah, choose what you want to do. If you want to run a team, by the way, where it's kind of like G2, where like league is life, 24/7 league, 24 spending time together, sure, right? It's successful, sure. If this is what you believe, sure. I mean, I'm against it because of what science tells me, right? And what history tells me, but that's fine too. But define what you want. Define what your team culture is. Define what your org is about. Define what you are about as a coach. That's my biggest piece of advice.
Beautiful. We'll take that in. So grab your pencil and paper, write it down, or your notepad, and press save. Put it on your desktop and read it every single day. So yeah, no, beautiful. So Seel, if they want to get in contact with you, maybe, I think most of the people that clicking you are clicking this through your feed because you've shared it, or, through my feed. Most of the people, I believe, they know you, but there are always other coaches or players or different people that don't know you and feel like, okay, you got an interesting story or would like to learn more or about your business or anything. Where can I get into contact with you and how?
So Twitter and email works well. So admin, I think just Twitter is best for sure. Don't think it's smart to put my Discord there. So just Twitter is generally best. If you want to know more about just systems and like specific things about the game and coaching and stuff, the first 10 to 15 videos I made on my YouTube channel were actually for professionals. Like I didn't create my channel at the very beginning for the general audience. There's literally a video called How to Work in Esports, and I go over how you should structure your CV. Reach out if you want on my Twitter at Coach Seel. Definitely, if you're starting in esports, I would watch those YouTube videos, because those 10 to 15 videos are all for people like you, right? How to VOD review, how to work in esports, basics about the game, stuff like that is all for you. So abuse that, and that's how you contact.
All right, awesome. Any final words?
No, nothing. But I just, a lot of people generally message me after like I go on talk shows and they ask me questions that's on my YouTube channel, and I end up just tagging it. So just please watch it and don't spam me. Like, I don't want to come back to 35 different messages asking about the game or esports. Just like watch those videos. Yeah. And thank you for having me on, Donnie. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Chris. So thank you so much, Seel, for joining on the Next Level Esports podcast, and as well as for you, the watcher, a big thank you to you for tuning in. If you like the podcast, hit the like and subscribe button, or if you want to become a better coach yourself, then for sure download the free ebook in the description below, or connect with the Worldwide Coaching Network and learn more about Next Level Esports. Then also head down to the description below, where you will find a couple of links to get your coaching career to the next level. My name is Donnie from Next Level Esports, and I see you guys next time. Ciao, ciao.